check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of the Chad Smith Podcast. My name is Chad Smith, and today is Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host from California. Please welcome Sonny Conway and Spooky Morales.
Good morning, Chad. Good morning, Sonny.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning, guys. Great to see you back, Sonny. How's it going?
It's going good.
Welcome
Good
back,
deal.
Sonny.
Man, I'm feeling...
Almost got the truck sold.
Almost got the truck sold,
guys.
I see you both have awesome UFO shirts on, and I just have us on my t-shirt.
This is old school.
That is old school UFO Garage, right?
UFO Garage, one of the first ones.
If anybody's interested in this shirt, this one's over at the Toddywabbit Universe, over at that one time I was abducted by aliens.com. Get yours at the shop store or in their shop over there. And then the other two, Spooky, is that a UFO Garage design too? Oh, okay.
No, this is X-Files.
Oh, okay. But yeah, he's
got Sully. Is that his name? Sully? Was that dude's name?
Yeah. Yep. That's sweet. I like that one.
Who we got in the chat today? Adrian's here. Say hi to Adrian.
Oh, yeah, we got...
Since I jumped in this morning, Adrian and my flock were here.
Oh, Arden Paranormal? Yeah, that's Sam.
Oh, yeah, Arden. My bad. Arden.
What's up, Sam? Good to see you. Walt Corbin's here.
It was Arden. Yep, Arden and my flock.
Sarah, my flock's here. Jake Smith. What's up, Jake Smith? Damn, Jake, you could be sleeping right now. Eddie Haskell, great to see you in the chat room, man. Let's see. Lynn LeBlanc, how's it going? Jeanette Sanchez, great to see you.
Hey, what's up?
I would just like to say R.I.P. to the real Eddie Haskell.
Oh, did he pass?
Yeah, the guy who played Eddie Haskell in the hit TV show Leave It to Beaver.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, that's not Eddie Haskell. That's Wally.
Yeah.
My bad. Eddie Haskell was their buddy. And Eddie Haskell's... Yeah, he's still with us, so my bad. I'm still waking up.
Me too, man.
Yeah, Wally. I didn't know Wally passed away, though. The guy that played Wally, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Wally passed away over the weekend.
Oh, man.
Well, that's a damn shame.
Thank you, Sam, for that. Tony Dow was his name. Bless his heart.
Tony Dow. Well, you know what? We got John Zavrell's in the chat room. What's up, John Zavrell? How's it going, man? And then I think we're good for the roll call. I want to bring up our guest today because he's backstage waiting.
Yeah.
It's going to be good, guys.
This guy's got a lot of years of research, and he is anxious to get on here and tell us all about it. So please welcome Mark Brenner.
Hey, what's up, fellas?
Hey, Mark, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me on your program. I'm really excited.
No problem. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
What part of the world are you at, Mark?
So I am nestled within the North Georgia mountains at the southern end of the Appalachians, not too far from the beginning of the Appalachian Trail.
Oh, wow.
Oh, sweet.
Very cool.
About an hour north of Atlanta and the extreme northern metropolitan area. I live right smack dab next to what's considered by many the most haunted and dangerous lake in the world, Lake Sidney Lanier. So that's kind of where the area I live in.
They say messing around in the Appalachian Mountains is pretty dangerous sometimes, as far as other people own the land and not wanting you around there. When you go out there,
no idea, brother.
Hiking, it don't get too dangerous out there.
I used to be when I was in the military. I used to do field training exercises up there at Camp Merrill, where they have Mountain Phaser Ranger School in Dahlonega, Georgia, and you never know what you're going to run into up there. It's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get up there.
You ever come across the steel or anything up there?
Nah, I haven't, but I spent a hell of a lot of time up there at in and around Camp Merrill doing our mountain warfare training decades ago and whatnot. And I it's a beautiful area, and it's there's actually an area I've discovered, which we can get into later, that I've coined the Cold Mountain Triangle, and where we have an area with lots of different types of high strangeness. We can get into that later if you guys want to. But anyway, I really appreciate you guys having me here, and I guess if you want me to, I can just start from the beginning. And
yeah, absolutely. No better place to start.
So I was born and raised in Mississippi, Lowndes County, which is near Columbus Air Force Base. And as long as I can remember, I've had various different types of paranormal experiences, ranging from lots of UFO sightings to missing time to poltergeist phenomenon, different types of psychic experiences akin to clairvoyance and other types of ESP. And I've had a few apparitional experiences here and there, lived in several places that were infested with different types of entities. So I've got I've got over 20 years of experience dealing with this stuff, because when I got out of the military in my early 20s, by the time I hit my mid 20s, I started having a lot of recollection, dreams, some of which were precognitive, and some of them were what I believe to be flashbacks from things I consciously remember. I remembered more. I was bringing back more details of these experiences as I remember having them, and then some more details. So all these memories, everything from some missing time experiences I've had with and without family members. I have some physical evidence which I could share with you guys if you guys want me to. I think I sent one of your producer Cassie a picture of some of my evidence. If you guys want to take a look at that.
Okay.
But at any rate, I've had all these experiences, and that's where I am today. Early last year, I founded the Project Stargate Fringe Research Group, and we take a hard look at various different types of anomalous paranormal phenomenon, everything from cryptids to hauntings, just parapsychology, and that's where I am today.
Excellent, man. Yeah, that's a lot to take in right at the start. You've done a lot of stuff so far. We had one question. We had one question come through already. Len was asking from the Facebook chat, have you ever done any research on Fort Mountain?
I'm not really familiar with Fort Mountain per se, but the area I live in, like I said, I live in this area that I've discovered that it's an area that goes from Dawsonville, Georgia to Cumming, Georgia, and then it shoots north to Ellijay, Georgia, and all the area in and around that triangular area, we have a hodgepodge of high strangeness, and we can definitely talk about that. But I'm not, as far as Fort Mountain goes, I'm not really familiar with that place. I know there's Lookout Mountain up there, up north of us. There's Blood Mountain, Springer Mountain, and those areas are synonymous with in the Smokies with missing persons and cryptid encounters.
Excellent. Yeah, that's crazy, man. So did you get started with this when you were real young, or was it interest like when you were a child?
Yeah. I'm going to borrow words from my friend Daryl Sims. I was a captive audience to it. And when he was on my program last year, he mentioned that. I was like, wow, that's dead on. That's pretty much what it is. We'll go back to when I was about 3 years old. I think we'll start there.
Okay.
If that's all right with you guys.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I was from Mississippi. I was born and raised, and my grandparents lived in South Mississippi. And from time to time, one of my earliest experiences was actually down at my grandparents' house near Laurel, Mississippi. I think I'll start there actually. So my grandparents lived in a little near Laurel, Mississippi, which is kind of south of Meridian. For those of you who are somewhat familiar with the geography, And they had a house. My grandfather ran a trust plant, and their house was right in front of the business. And one morning, in the middle of the night, early morning, middle of the night, I woke up and there was I kind of just sat up in bed, and there were three entities standing right there at the foot of my bed. And these entities were very, very, very short. They're probably about 3.5 foot tall. They were barely taller than my bed, but I could see their little heads, and I could see that they were wearing some sort of outfit that was reminiscent to me of like a druid cloak. And they had these hoods over their head. And they communicated with me without using their mouths. They didn't. I remember didn't. They had a very small little slit about this big or so. And the way they communicated with me, these beings, is not through verbs, through language, through audible language. They communicated really short, to the point ideas, and they were and that's whenever they started communicating with me, they were giving me simple ideas and simple instructions, like come with us, or do this or do that. So I got out of the bed, and they wanted me to follow them into this bathroom across the hallway from the room I was staying in. And inside that bathroom was normally there was like a crawl space, because this was in a basement part of their house. And when I walked in there, one of the beings, I turned around, and one of the beings was right behind me. And that's when I got a really good look at this thing. And with this, when I turned around and looked ahead of me, and there was this black circle looking blotch on the wall. It's as if like the matter just disappeared right in front of my eyes. It was really bizarre. And they wanted me, the idea I was getting from this entity was they wanted me to walk. It's like walk into that black circular, I guess portal, for lack of a better term. I have no idea what it was.
Right.
But that's one of my earliest experiences. And I remember the next morning telling my mother and my grandmother about what happened. And the thing I vividly remember is when I was talking about it, my mother, first, she said almost immediately, it was a bad dream, this, and, just like a lot of parents would. But then she looks over at my grandmother, and my grandmother gives her a kind of a creepy look. And then, that was the end of it. That's one of my earliest experiences, and it just gets more bizarre from there.
That's interesting, man. So were you afraid during that time, or how were you feeling when that was taking place? Because it seems like you were, like, in my mind, I can see you just going with them, and it doesn't seem like you were very afraid. But was fear a major thing that you were going through then?
Absolutely, man. Fear is something that I've learned that these entities feed off of. At least the ones that I've had encounters with, it's like, because these entities, the ones that I've had encounters with twice, the little short ones, people call them the Greys.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to have not have a very high IQ like a lot of people would think, but they have abilities that we don't, profound abilities. And it's kind of like that they're like a worker bee type, or a biological android, I guess. Let's just I'll kind of describe it that way.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a belly button. They don't have sex organs that we know of. They don't have nipples. So what that tells me is these things were cloned or manufactured or something. I don't believe that they're produced sexually in the way we understand it, at least. I have good reason to believe that they were created by some higher intelligence for the purpose of interacting with us human beings. And that's kind of what I've come to with those things.
And
What do you? Go ahead, Sonny.
I was gonna say, when you said you seen them and they were at the foot of your bed, basically you were laying down. Did it feel at any point like you couldn't move? Like when they were talking to you, like when you said captive audience, you were literally there, couldn't move. You had to listen to what they said, or could you have got up and ran away if you wanted to?
So that time I didn't have any type of paralysis, but there's another experience I'm going to get into here in just a few minutes where I was. The, and this is really important here. I think this next story ties into something bigger than me, bigger than I believe that this may be a generational thing. I'll tell you, and when this next experience I'm going to describe, I think you'll understand why I'm coming to that positive conclusion. I think I was about around 8 years old, and my grandparents were coming to get me to take me home for a week to spend a week with them. And when we were driving home, I remember where we were at when this happened because I'm very familiar with that area. And we were going south on this highway. And I remember we were close to Meridian, Mississippi. And I remember seeing the exit sign for Philadelphia, Mississippi, which is a big casino town down there in Mississippi. We had just, when this incident happened, we had just passed that exit sign. And where that exit sign is roughly about 50 minutes away from their house. So we were getting fairly close to their house. It was just starting to get dark. After we passed that and got off an exit to go due south on 59 and I-20. I remember right before we got to that exit, actually, there was this very bright, fiery object. A real bright object flew in front of the vehicle. I was sitting in the back, and the next thing I knew, I felt very sick to my stomach. I was having a headache. I felt like I was going to throw up, and I eventually did. My grandmother seemed to be like she was completely out of sorts. My grandfather didn't say anything. The only thing my grandmother said was, "What was that?" And it was around 9 o'clock when this happened. But when we got to the house, when we actually pulled in the driveway, it was almost midnight. How can that be? That's about a 2-hour discrepancy we're looking at here. So something happened. I don't know what happened. I don't claim to know what happened. I haven't been regressed. I'm on the fence about that. But that's just one of many, many experiences I've had in the state of Mississippi when I was really little. Something definitely has been going on.
Man. Yeah.
That experience right there was when you were how old, Mark?
About 80 years old.
8.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
But when I became a teenager, things kind of ramped up a little bit. I was about 13 years old, and I lived in we had moved to Birmingham, Alabama. My dad got a new job in Alabama. So we working for Bell South in Birmingham. So we moved to Birmingham. We went over there and we got a nice house. And one of the most powerful experiences I remember, I didn't see an entity. But something, what happened to me was so profound. That picture that I sent to your producer, Miss Cassie, was of a scoop mark on my right wrist. And I call it a scoop mark because I've had Daryl Sims and Kathleen Martin and a few other people look at this mark, and they seem to believe it's very consistent with what they've seen in the past. But what happened when I got that, one night I woke up and it was, I don't know what, it was in the middle of the night again. And I felt myself paralyzed, and I couldn't feel the bed underneath me. And as I could see still, like I could look around, but that's the only thing I could move was my eyes. And I could see that I was definitely above my bed. I could feel that I was levitating above my bed. And as I remember for a few seconds when I was conscious, I remember what I can recall is hearing this really, really bizarre screeching metallic like sound in my room. And then the next thing I knew, whatever got a hold of me, I fell and I impacted my bed, and then I blacked out. The next thing I remember was waking up the next morning and having this bizarre, I remember my right wrist, or my lower right arm, it was really sore. I hadn't injured myself. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. As you can see there, where my finger is pointing, I need to clean my nails too. I apologize for that.
We were good.
that right there, that little indentation, you can see a round shape, and then it looks like there's two little lines in the middle of it, and that's what appeared on my arm the morning after I had this incident.
Hmm.
Oh, wow. Yeah, this is something that's common. I've seen and heard a lot about this happening in the community.
Yep. I've
Scoop
I've went
marks.
to I've went to sleep before, Mark. This was about 8 years ago. I went to bed and I woke up in agonizing pain, and my ankle was hurting. I tried to get up out of bed because when I woke up, it hurt that bad to where I got up and tried to stand up, and I fell into the closet. My ankle was broke.
Dang.
My ankle broke while I was sleeping. I went to the hospital. The doctor was like, "Man, your wife miseried you." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Your wife broke your ankle when you were sleeping. What'd you do to her?" You know, he's asking all these questions, and so they booted it up. Well, about 2 weeks ago, I woke up and my foot was broke with a bone sticking out of it.
Yeah, this is a problem that Sonny has. He goes to bed and stuff breaks.
Me and the doctor thinks fighting in my sleep.
Yeah, I've seen that.
That's what we came up with anyway. I don't remember fighting in my sleep.
I think Deanna's kicking your ass in your sleep.
I think so too.
Tell her to make sure she gets y'all have a good life insurance policy on you first.
Something's going on.
I woke up hurt before too and not been able to explain it.
That's crazy.
I've
That is
also had
crazy.
the feeling of falling back in bed before. That's a different story though. We'll have to tell that one later.
Dang, that's creepy, man. I haven't gotten injured like that, man. That makes me feel better, man. I appreciate it.
That's my
She's
wife.
listening. That's
my
awesome.
wife.
Awesome. Hello, wife. Good to meet you.
Deanna.
Thanks for kicking
my-
Sonny's ass every now and then.
My wife and I. My wife is. I'll tell you guys this since we're talking about wives. Listen to this. So my wife, you know, one of the many things that I've looked into in research the last 20 years, parapsychology is a big one. I look at the paranormal as a whole, and I use that as a blanket term for many different phenomenon that could fit within that realm. Parapsychology is big. I didn't go looking for that. I found it by researching ghosts and UFOs, and it just kind of fell into my lap. I'm actually a member of the Ryan Research Center through Duke University, and they deal with all aspects of parapsychology. As a matter of fact, my wife, I have a deck of Zener cards, and you know, for those of you who aren't familiar with Zener cards, I get a lot of people seen Ghostbusters. At the beginning of the movie, Bill Murray has this cute lady and this dude hooked up to this machine, and he was trying to study the effects of negative reinforcement on ESP ability, particularly clairvoyance and remote viewing. So we got these cards, and the deck has 25 cards in it. So my wife, I decided to test my wife because we've had a lot of different types of psychic experiences together and separately. She does have epilepsy. We've had poltergeist phenomenon in this house and the last house we lived in. Various different, most usually spontaneous PK is what I think it is, but sometimes it seems to be connected to her seizures, which, you know, we can I can get into more details with that later. But there is a connection between epilepsy and spontaneous telekinesis or PK. But when we I put her through a battery of 10 tests with these cards. And what I discovered was we used different methodologies with it. At first, I would sit there about several feet away. I would hold the card up, and we did a 10 tests, and then then later on she would close her eyes, and then I would do it, and then we also tried putting the deck of cards after being shuffled in front of her with her eyes with sensory deprivation. She would pull the card where it's facing me, and with all 10 of those 10 tests she consistently scored between 14 and 24 out of 25. which is remarkable. She definitely has adept clairvoyant abilities, and that's something that's been very, very interesting to me. Learn remote viewing and clairvoyance.
For anyone just listening and they're not watching it on YouTube, can you kind of briefly explain what those cards look like and how that works, how that whole process works?
Absolutely. So Xena cards, I'll pull out my deck again and show some of the different ones and I'll describe them for your listeners on other platforms. So we have, there's 5 different cards. There's the circle. There's the star. Okay.
Pretty easy to see.
The square. We have the square, and we have the plus, and then we have, of course, the wavy lines. And the idea these were created by a parapsychologist back years and years ago. It's a simple tool to test remote viewing and clairvoyant abilities. And the interesting thing that I'd like to note before we move on to another subject is while I was testing my wife with these cards, the ones she did miss, almost every one of the ones she missed, she was actually nailing the one that was going to be pulled off the deck, the next one. So she was using some sort of precognitive ability was at play here for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Oh, thank you, Sam, for putting that. Project Stargate Fringe Research. That is Mark's YouTube channel. So if you could please check that out after the show, of course.
Absolutely, man. But anyway,
so I was gonna say, man, that's really interesting and awesome that you're doing your own research and your own what's that called? I'm trying to think of the word. Like experiments, where you're testing and doing your own testing. So that's sweet. I like those cards. I mean, we're used to like the tarot and oracle cards, so I'm happy that you explained what those are, because I'm sure everyone in the chat was picturing oracle cards, but they're just totally different. Just flashcards with little shapes on them.
That's basically what they are. Is psychic flashcards. That's a good way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
But at any rate, as I went through my teenage years, as I grew up, more and more, I've had a lot of other experiences and this is where I think that there's a lot of these different phenomena correlate in some degree. It's undeniable to me at this point in time. Hey, it's my friend, the thin Lizzie Borden, and love you. You're so wonderful.
Yeah,
Glad
she's awesome.
You're here.
She says they do have the test online also.
That's cool. Awesome. And anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to get. She's just a wonderful person. I'm really, really happy.
Yeah, she is.
She joined us today. At any rate, so moving on. Let's jump about. I've had a lot of experiences after that where I'd wake up. I had sleep paralysis, but there's a difference between sleep paralysis and this other phenomenon, what they call the abduction phenomenon. And I say it that way because at the end of the day, we really don't know what we're dealing with. At the end of the day, we have no clue what we're dealing with, but we're definitely dealing with something. Something has definitely interacted with us for at least a couple thousand years. I'm convinced of that. But anyway, when I turned, I had a very profound paranormal experience when I was 19 that I think I need to get into a little bit.
Sure, if you're comfortable.
I moved to Georgia a few months after my dad, my mother, and the rest of my family moved over here. We moved over here, and one night when I was working at a grocery store, and I befriended this lady from Canada. Her parents lived down here, and she actually lived in the same country club estate that we lived in at the time. So one night we were sitting in the break room having a smoke, and she told me that she had been having some bizarre phenomenon happening at her house. And then she proceeded to inform me that she has clairvoyant abilities in different types of psychic phenomenon going on. And what she wanted to do was she wanted to have a Ouija board seance, and try to get to the bottom of it. And I've never, at that point in time, I wasn't really interested that much in the paranormal. Like, I've had all these experiences, but it's just like it's like my mindset at the time up at that point was like, maybe this is stuff that happens to a lot of people and they just don't talk about it. So, I said, I was kind of skeptical about Ouija boards specifically. Never messed with one or anything like that. So I was like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So after work that night, around 11 o'clock or so, we went over. I went over to her place, and I saw a couple other friends of mine, mutual friends, and they had the board in her living room in the middle of the table. I want to make a footnote here that I was not under the influence of anything. I'd had like a half of a beer, so I was very sober. I had to drive home, so I wasn't intoxicated. I didn't even smoke any weed or anything like that. I mean,
Right.
It's just I was totally clear-minded. So we began, and she put the planchette in the middle of the board, and I put my fingers on it like this. I just barely rested my fingers on the planchette. Well, much to my surprise, the planchette started moving. And I kind of opened my eyes, and I looked at the three other people that had their fingers on the planchette, and they were all just resting their fingers on it, as I was. So something was moving that planchette. There's no doubt, ifs, ands, or buts about it. There was a physical, or there was a invisible force, I should say, moving that planchette. And it didn't take very long for me to become a believer. It was making very intelligent responses to our questions. I asked it a couple of questions. The other people there were asking it lots of questions. I was just more interested in watching this, and I was just, dumbfounded. I was like, I've never, I didn't really, I thought I was just a silly game. But I was a believer very quickly. I very quickly became a believer. But anyway, at one point during this conversation that we were having with this spirit or entity, it stopped answering questions, and it would turn and point toward and face the pointed end of the planchette towards me, and would move back and forth like it was pointing at me. And then what it would do after that is it would tell me to go answer the front door. So keep in mind this. Her driveway was very long. You would have to park out in the cul-de-sac where she lived, and it was and walk up the driveway, and you can't really hear people pulling up in the driveway at all. So I went and answered the door. As I was about to open the door, there was a young lady standing there. I didn't hear her walking up. Nobody heard her walking up. Nobody heard her pulling up. She was about to hit the doorbell. She didn't even get a chance to do that. And she was just staying there. And she came inside. I was like, wow, that was kind of interesting. And then a little bit later, it did the same thing. It asked me to go open the door again. And, this is in the middle of summer. This is in the middle of a Georgia summer. It's in June, sometime in June, and it's really hot and humid. It's a real hot summer night in North Georgia. And this time something else happened. As I approached the door, and as I was opening the door, I felt this rush of chilling cold air hit me, as if something came in the house, as if after I opened the door. And that right there, it sent chills all over my body. Like my whole body was my hair was standing up practically. There was no doubt in my mind that something was going on in that home at the time. But my experience didn't end there. It definitely didn't end there. I decided at that point that it was, it was really late, early in the morning. I was ready to go home. So I get in my vehicle. I told my friends bye. And I got into my vehicle, and I was driving to the other side of the neighborhood where I lived at the time. And the streets were, it was a real pretty neighborhood. It was well kept. There was a country club, golf course, and clubhouse, and there was really nice street lights through down all the streets. And as I was driving and I would approach a pair of street lights, the street lights started going out on me, like they would turn off. And as I would pass them, they would turn back on a little ways behind me. And this happened the entire way home. And then when I finally got home, I went upstairs to my room and I laid down, and I was so tired. I fell asleep and I instantly went into a lucid dream state of some kind. And in this dream state, I was sitting. It was me and these two other young ladies that was with me, and they were sitting in front of the Ouija board in that room, and they were in some sort of a trance, and they had their hands sitting on the table in front of the board like this, and all of a sudden the planchette starts spinning in the middle of the table of the board, and it flies off. And then as it flies off, I sat up in bed and I looked to my right, and there was an entity standing right next to me within 1.5 to 2 feet of me. And it looked like what they call an alien gray. That's what it looked like. And I started, I was terrified. I started repeating the Lord's Prayer, and I started trying to impose my will on it in some way. And the entity just went poof, gone. I mean, it's just like it was there 1 second, gone the next.
Whew. So it was just something that wanted to show itself real quick to show you that they exist or something. Did you get any message from it, like a telepathic message at all?
Not this time. It was, I believe, I hypothesized that it may have been trying to feed off my emotions in some degree. Maybe being me as fearful as I was, I believe that it was trying to, because I've had reports of people, testimonies of people that feel like that their emotions were being used by these entities, or they were feeding upon it. It's almost like it was a drug or something. But yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, for me, that makes me think like maybe it is spiritual. If you were messing with a Ouija board, then maybe that's all connected somehow.
And by the way, this is just me personally. I don't mess with Ouija boards. That was my curiosity was satisfied at that point.
Yeah.
But at any rate, that was a very, very intense and chilling experience, but it wasn't my most intense experience. It goes much further than that.
Man, that is interesting, because every time I've seen, well, not every time, but there are instances where I heard these stories where it shows up for just a brief second, and I'm always wondering if like their time is totally different than our time. So maybe that brief second that you saw the entity, maybe that was like 5 minutes to them, or 10 minutes the way that we feel it.
That's fascinating that you mentioned that. One of the things that I've researched at length is the out-of-body phenomenon. My uncle, when I was 8 years old, my uncle, my great uncle at the time, was telling me about a near-death experience he had. And when he told me about that, he told me about it in some degree of detail. And ever since then, I've been fascinated with the prospect of what lies beyond this physical existence we're in right now. And I probably looked at over around 100, maybe a little bit over 100 different near-death experience cases. I actually had a guy named Howard Storm on my program who was on Unsolved Mysteries in the mid 90s. He had one of the most remarkable near-death experiences that I've ever heard of. But one common thing that I've seen with the near-death experience, and this kind of ties in with what you just said, is time as we understand it does not exist there, or is perceived way differently. Because would people have these experiences? It seems like everything kind of happens at once, especially when you get into the life review. That's one thing that happens almost every time. People are seeing that their entire life flash before their eyes. And not only do they see their life, but they also they feel with total empathy. In other words, everything that the people they interacted with, they feel what they're feeling. It's kind of like I've heard people say that it's like instead of being judged per se, it's like you're kind of judging yourself and critiquing yourself. That's kind of what it's kind of like. I think that I have a hypothesis that I think that when people leave their body and whether it's through astral travel or through a near-death experience, I think the first place they end up is in the fourth dimension in some degree. I think that there's a journey that starts when you leave your body. I think that once you leave our third dimension, and you're kind of in that area, I think the fourth dimension being time, I believe that's where people pass through. I think we call it. There's a term people call the plateau. And when people remote view, you're actually accessing that information from the fabric of time, I believe. And also when you have your out of body or near death experience, I think that's one of the dimensions that you actually pass through. And I have good reason to believe that.
Oh man, that stuff is so interesting. Spooky, it looked like you were gonna say something. I didn't want to step over you.
Oh, I was just when Mark brought up the idea of leaving your body, it made me think about a theory that's been tossing around lately about beings that people are seeing. Some people are hypothesizing that these might be us from the future you. So sometimes the feelings you have might be you trying to put yourself at peace with the situation that's happening, while at the same time opening up your consciousness to understanding things differently than you already know them.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because I'll tell you one testimony I read about at the beginning of the year. This is one of the most fascinating cases. I'd say my top 5. I'm going to try. This one woman, she had a near-death experience, and when she was after she left her body, she would ascend into the first thing she reported was zipping through the universe. Like faster than the speed of light. And then once she left our universe, she said that she looked, and then that dimension just kind of folded in on itself. And then she was in another place. And then after she has her life review, that dimension kind of folded in on itself. She could see it, actually watch this dimension. It's like it was connected. It's like the dimensions were like Legos, the way she described it. They could stack on top of each other, and then they would collapse. That's what I find interesting. I think that there's possibly an infinite amount of dimensions in this that we actually exist in, but we can only function in 3 of them.
Mark, I wanted to bring this comment up. Gemma says, when Mark said earlier about his wife with epilepsy, people with disabilities do have heightened senses to the paranormal. As an autistic woman, I do. So that's a great point to bring up.
That is a good point, Gemma, and thank you for making that. Let me tell Jim, this is for you, Gemma. Years ago, we were living in our last house. We had a lot of phenomenon happening in our last house because I believe it was because we were closer to Lake Lanier. You could walk less than a click behind my house and you could be at one of the docks. So we were really close to Lake. We were even closer than we are now to the lake. But anyway, my wife, this is about 4 or 5 months after my wife and I got together. We got our place together. We were living in this house before we got married. And she had a massive grand mal type seizure during the course of this. I had, fortunately, when I was in the military, I was a certified combat lifesaver, so I knew how to react to a seizure. She when I in the back, I got her airway unobstructed, and I was on the phone with dispatch 911 dispatch, and I was working on her while I was talking to the dispatch. I got her after I got her airway unobstructed. She started to come out of it kind of slowly, and I got her up, and I took her into the living room, and I could hear the fire truck pulling up in our neighborhood, and I managed to get her up on the couch, and she wears glasses like I do. Her glasses fell off and they hit the floor about a foot away from her feet, and it stopped moving. Well, right as the firefighters were starting to cross the threshold into my house, her glasses took off and flew like half across my living room. And this happened in front of the two firefighters saw it. I saw it, and I think my daughter may have seen it. I'm not sure if she saw it or not, but there's at least 3 eyewitnesses, including myself, to this incident. So yeah, there is definitely some sort of connection between mental health and physical problems as well in PK and other psychic phenomenon.
Yeah, it's not the first time that we've heard something like that. So that's very interesting. Thanks a lot, Gemma, for bringing that up. Appreciate that. So where did you want to go after? Because I know we were at the last time we kind of went back to your timeline. I think you said we were you were age 19.
So yeah.
After that, where did you go from there?
Yeah. So moving on from there, I joined the military when I was 20.
Oh, okay.
I was in the Army, 3rd Infantry Division. I did light and mechanized infantry. And I was in for 3 years, and during the course of my service, I went on one deployment, and I had an experience at one base that I was exposed to something because I started developing afibrillation, and in my towards the end of my 3rd year, I fell out of a PT run, and I had to get a medical discharge. So, but when I got out of the military, I started, by that time I was married and I had a couple of kids. I had 2 boys, and slowly afterwards, I started having more and more UFO sightings. As a matter of fact, there's one incident I want to go back to before we get into this part of my life. Right before I joined the military, I was still 19 years old. We were living in the same neighborhood I was telling you guys about earlier. It was about 8:00 in the evening. My parents were coming home from evening church services, and I heard the garage door opening. And because my room at the time was right above the garage door. So I walked downstairs. I was watching a movie at the time. I walked downstairs and to see how my mother and my father was doing. And as I was walking into the kitchen, my mother says, "Mark, you need to come out here and take a look at this." And so what I did was when I walked into the kitchen and I followed my mother out into the garage. And as we did that, she goes, there's a UFO out here. You need to come look at this. And as I was walking to the edge of the garage door was open. My dad was standing there in the garage door and kind of shifted a little bit at an angle to the right. And he was looking up at it. And then my mother kind of walks up next to him, and she kind of stops and kind of shifts and looks up at it as well. And I would say maybe maybe within 200 meters, there was a saucer-shaped object that was just sitting there above the wood line, and it was making zero noise, no noise whatsoever. And we just kind of stood there and looked at it, just kind of puzzled, wondering what the heck we were looking at, what this was. And I don't remember what I did for the next several hours after that, and neither does my mom and dad.
Oh man! And what color? Do you remember the color? Was it silver like everyone else sees, or was it?
It was silver, and I had a strobe on the bottom of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Was the craft itself giving off any type of light by itself? Like, you know how they say that they glow, where they almost shimmer?
A lot of the ones I've seen were just they were so shrouded in some sort of energy, and this one had a very faint glow to it, and then it had on top of it had this really fast blinking light that was kind of pulsing at a higher frequency or whatever.
Oh, okay.
But I just thought that was worth noting. I suspect that there was some sort of missing time element at play there.
Mm-hmm. So you've experienced a few different missing time episodes.
So I experienced something. I don't like to jump to conclusions, but if it if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it might be a duck.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you said sober mind, no reason to have 2 hours missing. So yeah, something's definitely going on there.
But things get kind of weirder. Like years later, I had UFO sightings, and I've had some poltergeist phenomenon happen over the years. But one summer, I would say about 9 years ago, my partner Greg. I have two partners on my podcast. One of them, his name is Greg Schipp. He's one of my best friends. One summer we were working together at one of the big box retailer stores, and we were closing our department up, getting ready to leave for the night. And I said, "You know what, Greg? I've been seeing this object manifest every single night, and I want someone else to see it besides me. So I won't, it'll give me the verification that I'm not losing my mind." And this object I was seeing it was almost apparitional in a way. Like it would manifest in the airspace, and then sometimes it would move. It would move to another point in space, and sometimes it would just kind of blink out and it would reappear in another area. Well, this time I had my partner Greg witnessing this, and the interesting thing about this is once we saw it, after we talked for a little bit, he left. We had what seems to be a poltergeist outbreak in our home right afterwards. The door to my bathroom was slamming shut, and just all kinds of things were going on that night. It was pretty wild. So there's some sort of psychic connection to ufology. I don't know exactly how far it goes, but a lot of this stuff like cryptozoology, ufology, parapsychology, there's some sort of connection between all this. It's undeniable to me at this point. I don't know.
Yeah, I was just going to get into the cryptozoology stuff because I was going to bring in Bigfoot and see do you see a connection between UFOs and Bigfoot? Because a lot of people do. In
some cases, not every case. What I think, I've never seen Bigfoot. There's a local group that I had it's out here. They're called the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade. They're kind of my go-to authority for cryptid research. That's kind of towards the lower spectrum of what I look at, but I do look at it because it's very important. I believe I keep the cryptid research community at arm's length because of a lot of crazy stuff going on. There's a guy named David Pilates, y'all might be familiar with, that he's had some pretty bad experiences dealing with some of these people. But
I think it's important. 411.
Yeah, that's David.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, he's a MoFon member also, and he's written several books about Bigfoot, tribal Bigfoot, I think is one of them. Mm-hmm. And then he does his missing 411 stuff. But at any rate, this is so the area I lived in. I want to move forward a little bit. Mm-hmm. The area that I live in North Georgia, there's an area that I have coined the Coal Mountain Triangle. And it's an area that is in a triangular shape, and in and around this area, over the last 15, 20 years, I've seen that there's everything from a satanic cult operating out of one area to lots of UFO sightings to tons of haunted locations, and especially around Cumming and another town called ball ground. I used to live in ball ground also. I lived in 2 houses that were notoriously haunted. Just waking up with scratch marks on my wrist, on my body, on my arm, and other places. Lots of poltergeist phenomenon and stuff like that. So this area is synonymous with all kinds of high strangeness of all kinds, including cryptids. There's even a place down the road from my house that has an underground installation. It's called the Dawson Forest, and there's something radioactive under there. And we're actually planning an expedition, me and my partners, to go investigate that. We've had everything from Men in Black reports out there to cryptids to other just weird stuff going on in and around this Dawson Forest, where we have an installation that goes deep underground, and we're just really fascinated with that.
Oh yeah, I would be too. That sounds really interesting.
I wouldn't be going underground.
Well, you can't. There's not very. You can't really go that far down because it's flooded, and the people have tried to go down there, divers, and there's definitely something very hot and radioactive down there, because the further you go down, the hotter it gets. And at one point you can't go any further because it's just so darn hot out there and inside that installation. So we don't know what's down there. We have no idea, but but hopefully one day we'll find out and find out if it's causing some of the weird phenomenon that goes on in that particular area.
A lot of those places have noxious gases that come out of the ground too, so you definitely have to be careful about lack of oxygen and stuff like that when you're going in the ground like that. That stuff that scares me. Going, like what Sonny just said, going in those caves and stuff, because there's like miles and miles of stuff that we just don't even have mapped out. We don't know anything about, so it'd be creepy to go down in there and get yourself turned around and lost.
Yeah, definitely, man. But at any rate, so that's kind of what we're the culmination of what I've done with my life. I'm also a National Weather Service a certified storm spotter. So that's another thing I do. I know a lot about storm structure, how to read Doppler radar, and stuff like that. That's something else.
Sweet. How did you get into that?
Oh boy, you're right. So yeah, how did I get into that? 1994, Birmingham, Alabama, on Palm Sunday, we had a massive tornado outbreak, and it was all over the news. And it destroyed this big church in Coleman, Alabama. And I had an EF2 rated tornado came over our house. And I actually sat there and watched the storm coming over our house. And it terrified me, but fascinated me at the same time. And since then I've been in about 2 or 3 other ones. Most of them were like EF0 or EF1, but an EF2 rated tornado is very, very, very powerful. It's a significant tornado. But I learned all about storm structure. There's actually like 3 different types of tornadoes that occur. I know all about supercells, how they form, what we call the quasi-linear convective system, or squall line tornadoes. We know a lot about that, and then the land spout variety. So that's something else that I'm very interested in, and I take and pay attention to.
When you said tornado, the one thing that popped into my head was, have you ever seen those underwater tornadoes that were created during the what was the flood? There's a flood up in Washington. I can't remember. It was like 12,000 years ago. Graham Hancock talks about it. How all this massive amount of water rushed down, and it created these vortexes that actually like dug the ground out. And that's what a lot of these underground tunnels that don't go too far down were created that way, by like these giant, huge vortexes of water spinning around and just ripping the ground up.
Wow. I haven't heard about that. That's pretty interesting.
What's that, Sony?
I never heard of that either, Chad.
Oh yeah, I'll have to bring up some pictures of that, because it's pretty interesting how it works. Because it's like it grabs these boulders, as it's making this vortex, it grabs all these giant boulders and uses the boulders as like sandpaper, and it's just grinding the ground out, and that it leaves these big open like caves, and it's after when it's gone. It's pretty interesting how it worked.
That is interesting. I got something for you guys though. This is kind of weird. So, California, back years ago, there was a wildfire, and these wildfires can actually create their own weather, which is really interesting to me. They have been known. There's been occurrences where wildfires created such powerful updrafts that it actually started a regular full-on supercell thunderstorm with a rotating updraft. In California, they had one such as that, and they had large size hail, and the plumes from the smoke and the updrafts actually not only created a supercell, what's textbook a supercell thunderstorm, but it actually spawned an EF3 rated tornado that was like what they call a fire tornado, but it was a tornado by
you're
definition.
talking about the one that was on fire here, that big old tornado. Yes.
Yeah, and here's the thing that's crazy about it. They on Doppler, I saw the Doppler returns on that situation, and it clearly showed a powerful tightened rotational signature on velocity, and the local meteorologists, they'd never seen anything like this before. They didn't issue a tornado warning because they're like, oh, it's a fire whirl. Well, this is not a fire whirl. This tornado it was by definition a tornado. It was EF3 rated. It was uprooting trees, and on top of that, it was just like, God knows how hot it was inside of it. If you can imagine that. Pyrocumulonimbus supercells are definitely no joke spooky. Absolutely.
I've never heard of anything like that. Pyro-initiated supercells. That you don't want to be in the middle of that.
Australia had a couple of them too, and so they had one in Texas. Yeah, so that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
Mm-hmm. One of the most interesting outbreaks I've seen was it didn't really get much news coverage. Last year, we had the remnants of a tropical storm that was moving from the Gulf. It was going almost due north, and we were on the we call it the east side of it, what we call the dirty side. And on the east side of that low pressure, you can actually have embedded supercells in those rain bands. And the interesting thing about those is we call them, a lot of them are what we call mini supercells because they cap out at like 25,000 or 30,000 feet at the most. They're very low top supercells, but they're supercells nonetheless, and they will produce tornadoes. And I watched one of them. I watched one of them produce a tornado. Right, it was actually an F0. It crossed over Lake Lanier and right over the bridge I was on. And these supercells were, unless you're real close to the radar, there's some of these low top supercells are hard to catch on Doppler. But your friend Spooky asked me if I've ever been in a hurricane. Yes, I have. I've been in 2 hurricanes. Yeah.
She also said that Mark should visit hurricanetrack.com if you haven't yet.
Yeah, I use the tool I use whenever we're having severe weather outbreak or just to keep an eye on the weather. I use Radar Omega. I found that that's a really good app, and I'm not being paid to promote that or anything. It's a great app. That's what I use for it. But yeah, I'll have to check that out.
She says she's very interested in the weather. So you can tell that Spooky's opening up about the weather topic. She says we lost $4,000 in weather equipment during Ida last year.
Dang, I believe it.
She must do some storm tracking stuff. We might have to ask her about that. I'm not really sure what she's got.
Hey, Mark, is there a connection between the fascination with the weather and experiences that people might have had with other beings?
I was thinking the same thing.
You know what? I've been asked that a couple of times before, and I honestly have no idea. Not that I'm aware of, but we have we have the ability to manipulate weather. That's Nikolai Tesla discovered scalar energy, and from what I've researched with that, it can be used to manipulate weather just by itself.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely heard of weather being manipulated around sightings and stuff. So, I personally believe there might be some type of connection there.
There could be. I mean, if they've discovered the how to travel across dimensions, and I'm sure they can do something with our weather.
Oh, okay. Spooky says that she works for a weather company that puts remote camera systems and pressure probes along the coast in advance of hurricane landfall. We were the first in history to do so, and we licensed to TWC and Fox.
Oh wow,
Spooky
that's cool.
Spooky needs to come on in here.
Absolutely, it's very interesting.
So
as far as
do what?
Is this Spooky from over the pond? I was asking Chad.
Yeah, yep, she's over in the UK.
Okay, yeah.
So, as far as storms go, the thing that I mentioned earlier, there's 3 different types of tornadoes, and I'll kind of go over that real quick if you'd like me to, and their differences.
Absolutely.
The mother of all of them is the supercell. Supercells happen whenever you have a rotating updraft, a persistent rotating updraft, that goes all the way up to 80,000 feet. And usually this area of rotation is usually in the southwestern flank of the storm. That's where you're going to have a rear inflow jet. You have all these ingredients. You have an inflow notch on the other side. A lot of storm chasers will chase the storm through that inflow notch. They call it, or they'll do what's called core punching. They'll punch through from the north through the hail core, and they'll approach the rain-free base from that direction. But then there's another kind, they're called QLCS, and these are similar to supercells, but QLCS stands for quasi-linear convective system, and what that is basically a fancy term for a squall line. You may have heard on TV about bow echoes and derechos and stuff like that. What happens is there's these boundaries that push the squall line, and it bows out. And on the northern and southern end of the bow echo, you have what's called a bookend vortex, and it's kind of like a mesocyclone or the rotating updraft, but it forms a little bit differently. And these areas of rotation, they can be picked up on Doppler. They're also seen as like a little notch on reflectivity, but these areas can spawn tornadoes. They're usually not. They remain within EF0 to EF3 intensity, but they're very hard to predict. They're very dangerous, and usually they're rain wrapped and very dangerous to chase. You can also have embedded supercells in a squall line. You can have an embedded supercell, and then the third kind is what they call the land spout / water spout variety, and they are tornadoes. They just form a lot differently. There's no rotating thunderstorm involved. It's a ground. They start at the ground level and they connect to the cloud, and that's the textbook definition of a tornado. And they can occur over the land as a land spout or over water as a water spout, and that's what I do with severe weather.
Well, severe weather's always been, well, it hasn't always been. When I was a kid, it scared the crap out of me. Like, I used to get stomach aches and bad anxiety when I knew a storm was coming in. And then when they would do like the severe thunderstorm warning, take shelter, stay away from windows, that was always just like, when I was like little 6 or 7-year-old Chad, it was not good for me. I was
all 16 or 17?
No, six or 7. No, I think by the time I was, 17, 18, I was all right with storms, because I figured out I could probably just go down into a basement and survive 80% of what was going to happen. But when I was a kid and we were growing up in a trailer park, I'm like, man, there's not a whole lot holding this thing to the ground, so probably not good with a tornado running through here. So I had a lot of anxiety about.
Bree says she misses storms in Minnesota. I know she's got to be fibbing now. It's so cold in Minnesota, storms don't even go there.
Yeah, I've heard that the south, yeah, the
It's
tornado
horrible
alley
in
is shifted,
Minnesota.
man.
If the wind blows just a little bit, it hurts when it's wintertime. I can imagine. I would not want to be there in a storm.
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
But that's what I do, man. That's why where I am today. And early last year, I founded the Project Stargate Fringe Research Group, and I've had the privilege of fellowshipping with lots of great people like you guys, and I've had, among many others, I've had Daryl Sims on my program. I've had Dave Scott on my program. I've had Kathleen Martin on several times, and lots of other really cool people, and just really enjoy the fellowship and researching with other like-minded individuals. And that's where I am today.
Awesome, man. Well, I actually dropped the link to Spooky in the chat, so maybe she can come on and you guys can nerd out on some weather stuff, because I love hearing about that.
Yeah,
I just looked at the clock. It's 11:11. 11:11, Jake.
When what was I think it was just called Tornado, wasn't it? Storm Chaser, the movie from back in the 90s. Oh, Chad's not going to know. You will, though. The
Twister?
Storm Chaser movie where they were chasing tornadoes around and they were trying to get those little...
Twister.
Twister, that's it. Yes.
Yeah, man, I've seen that one. Come on now. Give me a little tiny bit of credit.
I used to love that movie when I was younger. But I used to think, too, like, these guys are driving towards a tornado. Yeah, right.
Maybe
There's
that's
some crazy people out there like you marked it like that stuff. I'll go the other way if I see a tornado.
Tornadoes don't scare me near as much as lightning does. Lightning scares the daylights out of me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hate lightning. I mean, you can watch a tornado coming and you can jump in a ditch, or you can do something like that, or whatever. But like, if lightning, you have no control. You have no idea when that stuff's going to hit you.
No, and it's completely unpredictable, right?
Yeah, I mean,
we don't have any way of.
I've seen people get really screwed up from lightning, man. It'll get you, no doubt, man.
Man. Yeah, that's the scary thing about, because I even thought that once you're in a vehicle, you're safe. But I just saw the other day an F-150 where lightning hit the top of the F-150 and it like split the windshield in half, and the whole rear view mirror was blown apart and the dash was all melted. And I'm like, guess you're not safe in a car.
When I worked at Dan Gamble's when I was younger, a motorhome came in while it was raining for repairs. It got hit by lightning. It blew anything electrical in the motorhome was ruined. Microwave, AC, all the fuses were just gone. They're just, any of the alternator, anything electrical on there was ruined and had to be replaced, and every fuse was blown, and it just hit the top of. And most motorhomes are, fiberglass. They're not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it hit this motorhome and
right.
It destroyed everything.
Well, welcome, Kari, to the stream.
Hi.
Or to the
How's it
panel.
going?
What's going on?
I heard you guys talking weather, and I was like,
Time to talk
that's
weather.
literally what I do every day.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
You didn't know that?
idea.
No, I'm like, I do things.
Deep into the weather. I did not know that.
I do most of the graphics and back end thingamajigs for what we do. So
Oh, that's
Carrie,
awesome.
Carrie, are you from the United Kingdom?
I am.
Cool. How many tornadoes do you guys get every year?
Not an awful lot. They usually take down your wall, but we don't get big ones.
Well,
Which is, it's unfortunate because it would be interesting to chase them here, but it's also really kind of condensed here. So I'm kind of glad there's not big long track tornadoes, because it ruined like 5 towns.
Yeah, we're in
Jamie's
North Georgia,
backstage.
where I live in North Georgia. When we do have tornadoes here, most of the time they're high precipitation supercells, and they're rain wrap nightmares.
That's because it's mountains. Subduction lift of air that causes, it's extra moisture in the air being forced up by the terrain. Then you get extra rain.
Absolutely. When I mentioned earlier, Carrie, about the that tropical system that came through the state of Georgia.
Which system was that?
I don't remember exactly which one it was. I'll have to get back to you guys on that one. But the interesting thing that I noticed, whenever it was almost going due north, and below it, the stream, there was it was like a train of moisture that was feeding bands in from the south into the low pressure, and that's where I saw those miniature supercells I mentioned earlier were occurring. But the interesting thing was, even well below the actual low pressure, we were getting those embedded supercells that were just spawning tornadoes all over the place. It was amazing.
The thing that gets those cranking is the difference in wind shear at different heights. So as you've got the moisture streaming in from like the drag, like we call it fetch. So like it's how you get like storm surge and stuff. The larger the fetch of a storm, the more water it's pushing, basically. And it's the same in the atmosphere. So it's dragging moisture from like the Gulf or the jet stream north, and then the air that's already there is causing it to spin because of wind shear. And then that's how you get like QCLS or QLSCS letters, and you get these like squall line tornadoes that they can be multi-vortex, they can hop. Like they're probably one of the most dangerous types of tornadoes because they're very unpredictable. Because instead of it being like a single storm with an updraft and you can kind of see where the notch is, see where it's occluding, you don't get that because it's rain wrapped and it's on the leading front of a gust front. So it can be there 1 second and be gone the next, and it can be very destructive while it's there. So it's
mesovortices. Yeah, you're right about that, Carrie. Mesovortices, very similar to mesocyclones. They're very they can spot. A lot of times they're very broad areas of rotation. I've noticed when I was in South Mississippi visiting my parents several months ago, we had a severe weather outbreak in Mississippi, Tennessee, and Alabama, and we had a bow echo that was moving right over.
So we had that.
Yeah, we had where I was at, the mesovortice or the bookend vortex was right over us. It was a very broad area of rotation, and sure enough, they issued a tornado warning. It was and you could see what looked like a lowering. I didn't see a funnel touching the ground, but there was definitely a lowering where this was. They're very similar to supercells in that regard. Just at a lower part in the atmosphere.
Well, yeah, so that lower chunk, in terms of the spin and the interaction between the two air masses, it is very similar to like your isolated supercell you get out on the plains. And a lot of it has to do with that air subduction. So as the air is coming up off the terrain, it's hitting the directionality of the main gust front at an angle, and that's what's causing the spin. So that's pretty crazy that you had a tornado warning.
Yeah, it did a little bit of damage down there, and but I remember it was about 7:30 in the morning, and we were we had a polygon. They always say respect the polygon when they issue a warning.
Oh yeah.
I can't overemphasize that. James Spann, meteorologist.
I know James Spann.
Yeah, I've met James Spann.
Our work.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's one of my heroes.
He's been doing that for so long. I remember watching him like 15 years ago, and then he's still going. Talks to my boss, goes on his Weather Nerds podcast thing that he does every couple of months, and does like here's what's going on in the tropics kind of update. Because Alabama doesn't get many hurricanes, but it doesn't get none either. So it's good to cover it. Good to get that.
Yeah, I'm really interested in what's going to happen in this hurricane season. The hurricanes are fascinating. They're fascinating, and if you catch that dirty side on the over here, it's the eastern side, man. You're gonna get your world rocked for sure, man.
Oh yeah, I mean western side too. I mean the western side of Hurricane Michael was still devastating. I mean it depends on the size of the system. If you got a really wide system with lower winds, it's generally not as bad. But if you get one of these short fuse systems like Sally, you remember Sally?
Yeah.
From a couple of years ago, that ramped up in the last like 12 hours before landfall, and the eye was maybe 10 miles wide, but around that was 120-mile-an-hour winds that just, because the circulation was so small, it could hit that terminal velocity a lot quicker. What is going on here?
I think we have a ghost
I'm
backstage.
sorry. I know. I think
we
I know
do.
who this is. I think I know who this is. Somebody is bored at work.
You give her the keys, and
I know, right?
this kind of stuff happens.
Then again, I'm at work too, so
And I can't even remove her because she's like an admin, so I can't even take her
Right.
out of the stream. It's crazy.
damn it,
I
Bree.
I didn't mean to get off subject so much. I apologize, man, but this is just something. that
Oh
I'm
no,
really
this is
interested in.
totally you're the guest, so anything that you want to talk about is totally on topic.
Yeah, definitely,
Awesome.
man. I got one for you, Carrie. So there's a theory in meteorology that as far as hurricanes and tropical systems go, and the idea is that and we know that in the eye wall of those tropical systems that you have mesovortices that are really tight and they spin up in the eye wall. I know that when the last year Reed Timmer was chasing a hurricane down in South Alabama near Louisiana and Mississippi. He was down there in that area when this hurricane was coming through, and there was clear damage where you could see it was
That sounds
tornado
like
like
Idaho.
damage.
That sounds like I from last year.
And it did. There were areas where you had a path of intense damage, and it was right where these mesovortices were in the eye wall. So
Do you know what causes those? I can tell you what causes those.
all I know about it is that half the meteorology community believes that there's like you can have small tornadoes in the eye wall, and some believe you can't. But the evidence is pretty clear that mesovortices spin up, and you do have these tornado-like features in the eye wall.
I mean, you do get spin ups they're very short lived. They're kind of like a QLSC. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Acronyms.
QCLS. No, QLCS. We'll get there. Learning moment. So you get those in the eye wall because it's, and these are quick spin ups, quicker than those. But then, what a big cause of mesocyclones are, and we got some really good footage from Lake Charles during Hurricane Laura. We actually got footage of one of these mesovortices hitting a skyscraper and like ripping all the fucking windows.
Wow.
Sorry, can I swear?
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Far from
Sorry.
monetized.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
So it smashed all the windows on one side in one camera thing. And the reason that happens is because if you get a well-defined eye, as it comes ashore, obviously that destabilizes, and that where it stadiums out, the pressure that's pushing it out wanes. So then you get instead of the circulation just going around the edge, it starts to like wrap in on itself in multiple points, and quite often they'll actually be at perpendicular points on the radius or diameter, sorry. And you can't predict them, but you can definitely measure them with radar and with videography and stuff.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, even if a mesovortice in a QLCS or in an eye wall, even if it doesn't produce a tornado, when you have a mesovortice in play here, it's going to produce a lot of wind damage, even if it's straight line winds, because of all the wind shear and everything that's flowing into it, the inflow and all that. You could definitely, even if they don't produce tornadoes, they're very damaging.
Do you remember the derecho that happened in Iowa a couple of years ago? I think it was May 2020, and it was the equivalent to like a Category 2 hurricane going across the cornfields.
I vaguely remember. There's so many of them; it's hard for me to catch.
It was the most costliest natural disaster in Iowa's history, and they're still recovering because there's no money there for federal disaster aid because they don't generally have anything happen. So to have something like that without 115-mile-an-hour winds that travels 400 miles across the state, across all the farmland, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that is. Dre shows are. Man, I tell you what, Dre shows are amazing. They can be every bit as destructive as a hurricane.
Oh yeah.
Every lick of destructive. I've had several of them. We've had several, especially in Alabama. I remember when I lived in Alabama in Birmingham, back in the '90s, from '90 to '99, beginning of '99. We had a lot of the tornadoes. We had a lot of isolated supercells, but a lot of the tornadoes that we actually had were spawned by mesa vortices and these QLCS systems.
Right on.
We ought to have you. Sometime you ought to come on my program, Carrie, and talk about this with me.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
I mean, I could probably put you in touch with my boss, who would be a lot better than me.
I know you know your stuff. I've really enjoyed. Really glad you joined us today. I love your audience too. You guys have a great audience. I can't tell you how awesome you guys have been to me today. Your audience is wonderful. Carrie, you're awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks,
This is one of the reasons I do this is because of the fellowship. I love the fellowship that we have, and Spooky, and you guys have been a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, this was a great conversation.
Thank you, brother. Same to you,
I can
man.
show you a few examples of what we do if you've got time.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know if we
absolutely.
explained
So I don't wanna just
know
take
if we
over and be like,
explained
"Hey."
that to you, Mark, but Kari is the other Spooky we were
Oh,
talking
I am
in the chat. Yeah, I don't know if you caught on to that yet.
I still have
she's
this.
who we were talking to before.
Whoa, what in the world is... Oh, yeah. 22222, two spookies.
Remember, it was the cosmic confluence
That's
of the
right.
two spookies. I kept this
That's right.
because I was like, I don't want to rub it off. It's too good.
That's awesome.
So it's just been under my piano for the past like 7 months.
That's cool.
That's awesome. I was
Like
gonna
your
ask
Halo
you,
poster. Like your
Oh,
Halo poster, by the
thank
way.
I was going to ask you, since I'm up here in Michigan, what's like the number one thing I should be worried about? Because we don't have hurricanes, we kind of watch from a distance, but what kind of...
Lake effect snow? Probably the thing you got to worry about the most.
Oh,
Or
Lake
ice.
effect,
boring.
that and lake effect, low pressure systems. There's actually a situation years ago. I don't know if you remember this or not. It was on one of the Great Lakes. They actually had a well organized low pressure area that basically formed a Category 1 hurricane over the Great Lakes. It was a very rare event. They didn't
Whoa.
call it a hurricane officially, but it was what it was.
Wow.
Yeah, the Great Lake Storm of 1913.
Great Lakes.
I'll share my screen and we can all learn about it.
Yeah, go ahead. That'd be awesome. That'd be my luck, is the Great Storm comes back while I'm alive. 1913.
So we got this is a good way to look at. You've got two low pressure systems here that have they're opposing each other, and you get the Fujiwara effect. So they will be rotating around each other, which is fairly interesting.
It sounds dangerous.
Yeah.
And there's all
Let's
that
see if
water
we
to
got
pick
any
up.
weather charts on this. These are the ships that were wrecked during the storm. That looks
Wow.
pretty wild.
That's
Yeah.
pretty widespread damage. That's a lot
Yeah.
of widespread damage.
Lost boat,
Wow.
stranded boat.
And
Everyone around here is really spooked out with Lake Superior, because like it never. What do they say? It never gives up its dead, or something like that. Lake Superior is real dangerous.
it's pretty dangerous. Weird tides around there too. Like, not tides, like rip currents and stuff. And a lot of that is done by the weather. But yeah, very interesting. Thank you for bringing that up. I knew about it, but I didn't know about it. So I just learned something.
I think there was another one also later on in the last century. I think there was another situation very similar to that. But there's just for as a side note, I believe there's supposed to be like a triangle area up there, like the Great Lakes Triangle or something like that, where we have a lot of spooky stuff that goes on like that, like just all kinds of spooky stuff. Yeah,
Shit.
that's
Real spooky.
There's a lot of
You
spooky
said the
going on.
magic word. And now we're both like, who, is he talking about me? Talking about you?
Which
It always
Is it
triggers you, right? You're like, oh,
Yeah,
spooky.
Like, I hear
Somebody
the
call
words,
me?
like, people can use spooky in like random conversation. I'll turn around like, what?
Same.
It's
awesome.
a curse. It's our curse, spooky. Curse of the Spooky.
Wow, we still have a ghost backstage somewhere. I think
Shit.
now the ghost's name is Spooky Morales.
Oh.
Even though we have another Spooky Morales on camera. Oh no!
What?
What was that?
Cassie, we're gonna have to remove her keys. I think
Jamie.
Jamie is hijacking the
Jamie,
show.
Jamie is Mark. For context, Jamie is my co-host over on Totiwaba, and this is what she does.
This is what she
Can't
does.
take her anywhere,
Or can't let her in anywhere.
right?
You guys are it, man. This is.
I'm just digging up. Here's a good one. I'll have to mute the audio, but I can show you all some time lapses of what we do at work, hurricane stuff. So my boss was the first person in 2005 to ever stream live video to the internet from a hurricane. He did that with Katrina. He's like the first person in history, like bona fide. And now we go out and put like 20, 30 cameras out with pressure sensors, and you get the pressure gradients, and we've got weather equipment and all the different things. And it's all publicly funded. Like we get no like corporate funding other than what we get for selling our footage to the Weather Channel or Fox or ABC or whatever. So
that does sound kind of addicting.
It's the funnest thing I've ever done.
Using gear and equipment and stuff to track the weather.
I'm gonna mute it so you don't get copyright struck, because I don't want to do that to you. But here's a time lapse of Hurricane Zeta from a couple of years ago. And I edited this on an iPhone, which always surprises me that I was able to pull this off on an iPhone.
Wow.
It's very weird without music. I've never seen it without music before.
This is really cool, though.
Yeah, this is sweet. It takes a long time to get just one time lapse, so.
Yeah. I mean, we have a page now in our backend that automatically compiles any camera that we hook up to the system. It will automatically per hour take all the frames and make a time lapse.
Wow, so every hour it takes all the frames that it collected and makes a time lapse?
Yeah. So it
awesome.
takes a frame like every 20, 30 seconds, and then it compiles it together once per hour, and then you get this, we have permanent cameras in like Pahrump, Nevada and stuff, so we get a lot of like time lapses of the monsoons coming over the mountains, or
That's cool.
Do you have, Carrie, I just had a quick question for you. Do you utilize what radar app do you like to use? Which one?
What have I got? I think I've got Radar Omega.
Yeah, I love Radar Omega. I've tried several of them, but that's definitely the best.
Radar Scope's pretty good too. I mean, there's slight variances in resolution between the two, depending on what kind of radar feed you're looking at, what tilt you're looking at. But the way that it displays the data is very different. Like Radar Scope is slightly higher definition, whereas Radar Omega, you get more options. So it's about a balance between the two. Like some members of our team use Radar Scope, other members use Radar Omega. So I don't think there's one better one. I think they have different uses.
Right. I know. There's a guy I follow. His name is Ryan Hall. He's really good.
Ryan. We know Ryan.
Cool. Yeah, he uses I think he uses both of those, or he uses several of them.
He uses Radar Omega. So he kind of lucked out with I think he did it through Reed Timmer. So Reed Timmer's been with Radar Omega for like a while now, a few years.
It's funny you said that, brother. I mean, Carrie. The reason I say that is because when that whole situation down in South Mississippi was going down, Reed Timmer was about 5 miles away from my parents' house.
Right on.
And so was, and so was.
That's not where you want him to be, man. It's just not.
I was following him.
30 miles.
I was following him. I had Ryan Hall pulled up, and I was following him. I was like, and I looked at where he was. I was like, dang, he's right down the road from my mom and dad's house.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. Like it's the same with what's his name from the Weather Channel, Jim Cantori. Jim Cantori. Like if he comes to your town in a hurricane, leave. Leave. Just don't even
kidding.
pack. Just leave.
That's true though, man.
It is. Like I've seen it where like towns under a hurricane warning will put a sign up on the highway. You know, the warning signs that were like Jim Cantori, go away. And I'm like,
Is he bad luck?
oh, if he turns up in your town when there's a hurricane due, leave.
Yeah.
Leave immediately.
Just immediately evacuate.
Run.
Because it's not the place to be. So
that would be a funny video to make where he comes into the town and that song starts where it goes run. It's just the whole town running away.
So this is a good example of what our day-to-day is during a hurricane. So this is Hurricane Laura in 2020, and it's like 4 days of driving because before Laura there was Marco. Although Laura formed before Marco, it makes no sense when you think about it logically. So just ignore the logic for a second. So we drove down to Grand Isle, Louisiana to put a camera down for Marco, but then Marco ended up fizzing out and got sheared off. So it was mainly just Hurricane Laura that we put cameras out for. And so that's the Grand Isle camera we just put up. And then
there's a lot of images.
It is. It took me weeks. This is a time lapse of a time lapse that I made.
Time lapse of a time lapse.
This was a full 2-hour movie that I had made with. It was like 5-6 days worth of footage that I got down to 2 hours. And then I was like, I don't have 2 hours to show somebody this. So I'm gonna time lapse it again. But it's a good example of what we do.
Yeah.
Because most of what we do, I'm staring at tarmac going by, until we get cameras out, which happens fairly soon.
Sounds like fun. Yeah, this is cool.
It's a lot of fun. Like we got our camera, actually, the first camera they're about to, this camera here, that got a direct hit from it was within 1 mile of the center of Hurricane Laura as it came on shore, on the shore. So it had the closest to dead on pressure data that we could get. The only problem is the box went underwater for those 12 minutes. So we had to use machine learning to figure out what the gradient of the pressure would have been had the box stayed above water. But the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, they said, we can't take your data this year for that data set because you use machine learning. So it's it's a push and pull, but science gets done. And
I would imagine that there's a lot going on backstage as far as getting permissions and figuring out where all these cameras are going. And
we generally don't have to ask for permissions per se. Sometimes we do. If the town's been evacuated already, then we would liaise with local emergency services. But quite a lot of the time, we'll provide them with a free link to the camera so they can make decisions and have data so they can do emergency management in the area.
Oh,
so
that's awesome.
It's liaising is the key part, because without, if they're not cool with it, then they're not cool with it. But if you go and you convince them that, hey, you're going to need this data to know what's going on in 12 hours time, they're going to be like, why would we say no to that? So I mean, when we put the cameras up, it's not destructive or anything. It's
for this one place, Kari, for this one place, is that a recurring thing every year? Does this happen? Maybe not this bad, but
what Cameron on the Cameron cam?
Just for these little towns like this that are close to.
Yeah, I mean, if it's Gulf Coast living, really, If
that's what I mean. Is this just something that occurs every year for these people?
I mean, not every year. I mean, it's a lot of coastline to be affected. They have to be prepared, definitely, but not so much oh my God, it's going to happen every year that we live here. But to be prepared is good.
Yeah, I've always heard too that all the structure down, all the buildings and stuff down there have a totally different building code than we do up here in Michigan. Everything's built way better. And
everything's
stronger.
built to last. There's some. Where are they? So here. Oh no, I missed it. So this is Holly Beach, and all these houses are built 20-30 feet high because the ocean comes up that high.
Holy smokes!
like I have some 360 video from the day after this. The whole place is trashed, like like a nuke went off. It was like the tall houses were all fine, but these trailers at the back, gone.
Whoa.
All of these power poles, gone. We lost the camera that we're putting up now. It floated out like 800 yards beyond that. You see that little trailer on the left at the back?
Yeah.
It was like beyond that in a crocodile infested field.
Jeez.
So we never got that camera back. It's part of the job is losing equipment. Like that $4,000 of weather equipment. The whole reason that they fell off of one was on like the Hale-Boggs Bridge and one was on the bridge in Houma, and both vibrated from the 140 mile an hour winds that the T-screws ended up unscrewing over hours of time and then falling off of the bridge. Like one of them fell like 600 feet off of the bridge. It's nuts.
Wow.
We ended up getting that one back and repaired though. So.
Oh, cool. Pretty durable cameras.
Well, it was a full. It wasn't the camera. It was like a full. Mesonet thing with a. My words are failing me today.
No, it's okay.
Anemometer. That's the word I'm looking for. And like an anemometer, pressure sensor. Had a camera on it. It was. Sorry, I love my job. I love talking about my job.
No, that's really cool to get people on.
It's really cool.
Oh no.
No, it's awesome to get
Definitely,
people
man.
on here that have a passion for what they do, because they can, you guys can actually talk and fill some time up. So it's awesome.
Right.
And we're learning.
Yeah. I mean, the most important thing about my job that I love is the fact that we get to help people. Like that.
We're learning. Was I supposed to be paying attention?
I mean,
yeah, we were supposed to take notes.
There could be a test. I may have to test you at the end.
Yep, we're all gonna get quizzes passed out. Hope you're taking notes, Sonny. If anybody in the chat room has any questions about weather or about paranormal or anything, you guys just type it in all caps so I can bring it up.
Yeah, I'm definitely open to it for some Q&A
There's
if anybody wants to throw some out.
How about UFO sightings around tornadoes? Is that like
Well, I've often wondered about it because it's technically a toroidal energy field, right?
well, they say there's a lot of them around volcano activity, like when one erupts, you usually see them. So I was just wondering if it's.
I think if they are, and I've heard reports about them being around volcanoes, if they are, then they're interested in the release of energy, I think, tectonically, because there's very little that they can get out of the sulfur or the emissions, and I don't think they can learn a lot from the lava. It's just molten rock, but the energy being released is interesting.
It's a massive amount of energy.
It's a massive amount of energy, especially when you've got a lot of that rock is made out of crystal. So, it's about I don't know for sure. I'm not a geologist, but like I imagine melting down that much crystal puts out a lot of interesting energy that they would be interested.
Right. Yeah, like this guy right here. Brought my crystals in today.
That is beautiful, man. That is awesome.
Got this crystal. I only have 2 in here. I've got that massive one, and then because Jamie talked me into buying these, they're pretty cool.
Oh, it's a nice geode.
Yeah, this thing's heavy. If I drop it on my keyboard, I'd probably break it.
Hey, Chad, I gotta run and grab something to drink real quick. I'll be right back.
All right, man. We'll be here.
Yeah, actually, I need to also. Is that okay if I run and go grab something? Real quick?
No, you're not allowed.
Yeah.
Don't move.
You signed a contract. You have to be here.
Right. Contract is the most important bit.
I think I can bring in some copyright-free stuff. Somewhere. Nope, that's for meditating.
How's that meditating going, Chad?
I don't know if I'm actually meditating or if I'm just. I mean, yeah, it's meditating, but I'm not getting any images or anything like that. But I am definitely. It's relaxing me and it lowers my heart rate. My heart rate down when I need it to. So
Awesome.
that part of it's working.
That's great.
It's a bop.
I've got the. I know I shouldn't brag about having air conditioning right now, but the air conditioning is drying me out so bad. The air in here is so dry.
Need some H2O.
The whole conversation, my eyes are just like.
Enzo said, Chad, did you
out.
talk about your pictures from the weekend?
Oh, no, I haven't yet. Thank you, Enzo. So I went out this weekend because I noticed we had some clear skies and we had clear skies, and then the moon was kind of non-existent. You know, it was a real small crescent moon. So I decided to go out. Oh, and I also learned that my phone takes awesome astrophotography pictures by doing like 5-minute exposures.
Nice.
So I went out and did some 5-minute exposures, and let me pull up a couple pictures.
Wow.
Oh, this one was kind of interesting because it's definitely star. I mean, I saw those as a star formation, but the picture makes it look like it's a triangle craft. Kind of cool.
That is pretty.
It's a sweet picture.
You know,
That
I
was a
think
good picture.
I thought it was that was a good picture. I had a close encounter with Windows one time. It was actually pretty close to me.
A triangle?
Yeah, and it actually had.
Did they abduct you?
I don't think so.
I could have said that one time you were abducted by aliens.
You missed it.
Damn.
A county deputy saw it. A man walking his dog saw it, and it was right above us, silent as it could be. I mean, first time I ever seen one of those really up close. I mean, it was right above me, like probably like maybe 150 feet up in the air.
Did it make any noise?
I was just gonna ask. That's so funny you said that.
Not a peep, nothing.
Huh.
Interesting.
Well, the interesting part about me out there taking pictures, Enzo pointed out, he said, you know, what's going on with the green? And I'm like, I don't know. I just figured that was just lens flare. And then he looked it up, and this was actually the Aurora Borealis, the Northern Lights, were just
Oh, right,
enough
you're
to
in
come
Michigan,
down.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Oh, that makes sense.
Just so happens that for some reason it was, well, I guess it was from solar flares, but is the Aurora Borealis came down farther than it normally does, farther south. And
That's
I
cool,
was
man.
out there at the right time. Didn't even know it.
Wow.
Again.
Anthony's got the right idea in the chat.
Oh,
That one time I was abducted by a band camp instructor.
Oh my god. That's pretty good. What's up,
Yeah.
Anthony? Good to see you, man. Well, Mark, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about that you didn't get a chance to?
That kind of covers it all, but I do want to leave y'all with one thing though. So at the end of the day, you know, we don't know 100% what's going on with these UFOs and other things, and I encourage people to keep an open mind. And also, one thing I tell people is even if you have an adamant disagreement with somebody over their conclusion, I always suggest to people to keep an open mind and listen to understand instead of listen to respond. Because even if you don't agree with their outcome, you can always learn a lot from other researchers, and that's where I want to leave it.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate
That's the
that, man.
best mindset to have, man.
Yeah,
Also,
Listening to understand is key.
mhm.
exactly. And also, I'd like to ask everybody, if you get time, just check out my channel. I have some very we research every week. We've taken every once in a while we'll take a week off, but I'd like to ask everybody to, you know, if you get a chance, check out our research podcast channel. We're also on Spotify and Amazon.
What's the name of your channel?
Project Stargate Fringe Research.
Right now, I'm doing it right now.
Thank
Everyone
you.
in the chat, go and do the same thing. Project what, sorry?
Stargate Fringe
Stargate
Research.
Fringe.
I believe Sam's been dropping the link. Appreciate
Oh
that.
yeah,
Sam.
there we go. I'm your 157th subscriber. You'll be at 1,000 in no time. Don't worry.
Oh yeah.
That's what we're working on.
Especially if you're in this crowd.
But I really enjoyed being with you guys. Thank you for having me, and we can do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for
Mark.
coming in.
It's good to meet you, Mark.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
Mark,
too.
awesome, man. Have a good
Nice
day,
to
bro.
meet- Nice to meet all you guys. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all, Mark. Thanks so much.
Thanks again, buddy. So, guys, that was another good one.
Absolutely.
I like
Yes,
him.
sir.
I like
Curry
him.
joined
He was
us.
a good guest. And
You caught me. You got me to join.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I was like looking at weather models and listening to the talk about weather, and I was like, wait a minute,
I can join in.
I
on this
can
one.
do that.
That's awesome. Thanks so much.
No worries. It's
Adding
good
to the
talk
conversation.
Weather with another enthusiast.
That's right.
Yeah, weather always freaked me out when I was a kid, but now I'm pretty cool with it as long as it doesn't hurt me.
I always
I love
liked,
being in the rain.
especially the lightning. When he said he was scared of lightning, I was thinking, oh man, I love the lightning. I'll stay outside until the lightning hits just around Billy's house. So about 200 yards from me, I'll go inside. I'll come in the garage. That's when I start getting a little scared when it's
That's
hitting
when the
ground.
lightning comes indoors and finds you.
Well, here it hits the ground, so it's hitting the ground. So I go inside. It's not just over the top of us. Sometimes.
Jeez.
Oh, I just missed this. I missed this comment. Sorry, Bree. I just saw it just now. Mark's got
there
a
was
cool kitty,
cat.
apparently.
There was a cat the whole time.
There's a cat the whole time?
The whole time.
What is that from? That's driving me nuts.
Home Alone. The whole time. No, it's not. No, it's Mrs. Doubtfire.
This is Doubtfire, yeah.
The whole
that's
time.
right.
The whole time. That's Sally Field at her best, man.
Yeah, Sally Field's awesome.
Although she was better in what's the one driving?
Smoking the
One?
Bandit.
Smoking the Bandit. That was the best Sally Field movie.
And one.
Yeah, they didn't have a script for that one. I always tell people that.
That's your line. That's my line.
Yeah.
That was the first movie to ever have outtakes in the credits.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's some of my favorite parts of all the.
There was
Smoking the
another
Bandits is
movie.
The outtakes.
There's another movie in like recent years that put its outtakes in the credits and then put the Smoking the Bandit outtake in the credits because it was the first one. I can't remember what movie it was though.
I just watched it. Like 5 days ago, probably, and I can't remember anything but the outtakes. I just remember Smoking the Bandit popping in.
It's the best part.
I'll think
Like
of
Burt
it.
Reynolds forgetting his line is classic.
He forgot his line?
Well, it's
Oh, yeah.
him and Sally Field get mixed up on whose line is whose, and
He
they're like,
says-
"Wait, that's my line. That's your line. That's my line."
He goes, well, when do we start? And then Sally Field goes, when do we start? He goes, that's my line. That's my
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's in the outtakes. It's funny. Man, that's
That's a good
horrible
movie.
when you've seen a movie so many times, you know the
Right.
outtakes word for word, too.
I mean, I'm like that with Twister. I don't know the outtakes, but I know every square frame of that movie.
Twister. I used to
Yeah.
watch that movie. I've probably seen that movie 20 times, and I'm not a storm chaser. It was just, to me, it was that good of a movie to me. It
It
was.
is a good movie.
It's
For
funny,
me, it was. I
scary.
got a copy on VHS when I was like 7 years old, and I was hooked after that. I wore that VHS out, and I wore another VHS out, and then I got the DVD released. You know, it was the first DVD ever released.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I just saw you in the chat. Thanks so much for being our guest today. That was an awesome conversation.
Make sure you go follow him.
Project Stargate Fringe
If
Research.
you all haven't done it.
Absolutely, please do that. Also, I need to bring up, I barely talk about our sponsor. We have one sponsor, W Energy. I've been drinking all the morning. We don't have a coffee sponsor yet, so W Energy is where it's at, guys. I've been drinking this stuff all week. I'll be honest, because I'm just always going to be honest, but the first time I drank it, it did have like that powdery pre-workout taste, but after the second time, it went away, and now you mix it up with some ice, and it's really good. Sugar-free. You go to w.gg.com and use promo code Chad Smith, all one word. Today I
Does
was
it ship
using
to the UK?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it does ship anywhere in the world. It's made in the United States. Yes, W can be enjoyed at all corners of the
There
world.
you go. That's cool.
Yeah, I want to try
I'm
this
gonna
one.
have to try one. That looks interesting.
Mango white peach color. This is the one I'm drinking right now, Dragonade. It's really
Dragonade.
good.
Dragon fruit is pretty good.
That's the first one I tried. I didn't really like it. The Granny Smith apple one. But yeah, they have cool.
Oh my god,
mixing bottles.
watermelon, guava, and lime.
Yeah.
Oh, you may
Let's
have just
see,
got a new customer there.
We've got Neurofactor, a patented all-natural coffee cherry extract to help fuel you. This ingredient is what gives Dubby its laser-focused and fast reflex effects. It's made for gamers, so it's not a pre-workout. It doesn't have like that stuff that makes your skin crawl when you... Oh boy, we got Jamie backstage again.
I just witnessed
What
shirtless
if I
Stephen
already
Gray.
have cat-like reflexes?
This is going to make you
faster?
like into a... Yeah, even faster.
Oh man.
Jamie, go back to work, or I'm gonna call the front desk and tell them.
Oh, that's always a good idea. I've never thought about that. Just calling up and being like, "Hi, you have a disgruntled employee that's in my chat room right now."
What do you pay her for?
Yeah, well, our luck, they'd be like, "Well, we pay her a little bit for this, but we also pay her to get online and stalk you."
She's coming in harassing
snap.
people, just putting stuff up on the screen.
I don't,
whenever
now I've
she
seen the goat. I think it's Brie.
She just randomly goes through and puts up pictures
Oh,
while we're
jeez, she's
talking.
just randomly putting everything up.
And we're trying to do commercials. Jamie.
Go to w.gg.com, use promo code Chad Smith to get 10% off all your purchases. I swear it's really good. Go get some. All right.
For sure.
What else we
Yeah,
got to talk
anyway.
about?
Try it out.
The Chad Smith podcast and the Paranormal Chop Shop both have memberships that you can sign up for if you'd like to support the show. Chad Smith podcast is over at buymeacoffee.com/ChadSmithPC. We have 2 different levels you can support with. There's a $5 and a $10 a month tier, and I'm gonna change that around because we need some more benefits for the members. I got some ideas.
Naked
You should put
Tuesdays.
Discord on the $5 one.
Ooh, that's a good idea. Yep. Private Discord. Yeah, I need to talk to the team and get some ideas for some new, what do you call them? Perks. Some new perks for each tier.
I don't know.
But yeah, if you want to support the show, please do that.
Support the show.
Definitely
Do it.
appreciate that. And what else you got, Spooky?
I don't know, I've just been thinking about the show on Thursday. I've got like a collection of videos I want to go through this week.
I apologize for that. We seem to be having some technical difficulties
It's so
backstage.
funny to me because it's Chad and Jamie making out and no one knows.
God. You gotta delete that.
Oh
video.
no, I'm gonna text her right now. I'll be like, "What are you doing?"
This is the appropriate one to play. We have a $5 donation from My Flock Sarah. Thank you, My Flock,
Oh,
for that
right on.
donation during the
Smile.
show. Appreciate that.
Oh, God.
And Spooky
just put-
Morales, do you have any interviews coming up?
Why?
I do not, Chad.
All
I
right.
don't have any interviews coming up, man. I don't
I do
really
not.
care to
Oh,
talk
hi,
about
Mark.
myself.
Well, I'll just have to arrange something so that you're on with Carl Crusher.
I will
guess.
say this to drop a little something
Watch out,
something.
Chad. Trying to stab me.
The downloads are going crazy right now. Something is happening. I can't get into specifics because it's not really my place or my time. But I will tell you that there is something crazy going on. I can't sleep a wink. I'm getting interrupted all the time. And it's just like wild right now. The energies are like out of this
It's very
world.
strange you
So.
said that because the same thing's happening over here in the UK. A lot of people
See what
can't
I'm
sleep, there's
saying?
Crazy dreams. Look at the solar activity. That's the key.
Even
I've
the
also been-
paranormal, even the paranormal's heard about the odd house. It's
The
gonna be
odd
starting
house.
up. That's what it is.
Dude, I'm serious. Like I've been seeing, like, I don't feel the energies or anything like that, but I've been seeing repeating numbers like non-stop. I mean, it's like at the point now where I usually take pictures of them every time I see them, but now I just kind of smile and laugh because I've been seeing them constantly. Yeah, 2222.
Yep,
It's been a lot of ones.
222 right now.
It's what?
It's 8.
Oh yeah, it's 8222.
222222222. Whole bunch of
Yeah, so we'll see what's going on.
Jamie's asking what she missed.
Oh, Jamie.
You were running the show, Jamie.
Yeah,
Don't play.
we had somebody backstage that was just running this thing.
See, this is what I mean. I think it was Brie.
Oh, yeah.
It was the goat. The goat image gave it away.
It was the goat, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to go to work today. And me and Jake are on the same shift, so I have to go and pick Jake up.
Are you guys
ride
still
in
doing that
together now.
hour mandatory this week?
UFO
Yep.
Rock.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to be letting up anytime soon. We're getting pretty busy.
Wow.
We started out with like over 200 employees. I don't know. We started out with a lot of employees, and now we have like half of them. So
Is it, and how about the Saturday thing? Is that still happening?
Yeah, I was,
the Saturday thing.
Mandatory Saturdays?
Oh, yeah.
Wakey, wakey.
We usually have to do every other Saturday. So this weekend I won't have to work.
Oh, cool.
you better send me one of those shirts. You got my
Like
address,
the
Jamie.
boys is in the TV show.
Where?
What?
Oh, how come Sonny doesn't have the boys shirt? Oh, this one.
Oh,
That big ass mic in the way.
that shirt belongs in 1987.
That's where I got it.
Oh shit!
We'll talk about that on the next episode of how I got this from 1987.
Chad, are you still having to do your hour mandatory overtime stuff?
Yeah, 9's all week.
Hey,
Yep.
do you all remember the Lob Bazaar?
La Bazaar. I've heard of him.
I've heard of that guy.
Lob Bazaar, he turned up on the show in a silhouette. But
Yes.
it turns out he came back in time, and now there's Detective Noir chasing after him
Oh,
through
yeah.
the sultry streets of the UK. Check it out on the next Taiwaba vlog.
Oh, I can't wait for that one.
I may or may not have made a full Detective Noir short film.
That's not cryptic at
Uh-huh.
all.
No, I'm being direct. I may or may not have made a Detective Noir film.
I'm being direct.
Oh, man, I can't wait for that.
It's pretty fun. We're working on it. There's a couple of shots that need like special effects, so we're just fixing those up. But I put on a full suit and tie and ran around with my Nerf gun outside, and then chased imaginary people. My neighbors probably think I'm insane, but
That sounds awesome.
I think that they smell.
I think most of our neighbors think we're insane.
If your neighbors don't think you're insane, are you even trying?
You're not doing it right.
Right? You're not doing it right.
All right, guys.
So
Thanks
that-
so
yeah,
much
that-
for being here. This was fun.
All right. Yeah. Well, Steph, thank you, Chad. Wonderful. Hey,
Yeah, no
Kari, thank
problem.
you so much for joining us, Spooky. That was awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was fun
I'm
time.
down to
Maybe
talk
we
about
should
weather
get-
any day of the week.
Maybe we should get Spooky on the show. On a show
That'd be-
soon.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be actually cool to
Yup.
talk about weather. We haven't had anybody talk about weather
Maybe
before.
a little bit something
Well,
different
that was
than weather
the first-
too. Kari's
Yeah.
more than weather.
I am weather.
I am the weather.
I am the weather. Now, I can talk about most anything. Apart from that, not that.
Okay. Sounds good to
Filthy,
me.
filthy mind spooky.
Oh,
Thank you,
Lord.
Val.
We got to go
It was-
before
it was a
Jamie.
pleasure.
Jamie's back up. We got to go. All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Hey,
Love
Love you
guys.
guys. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Peace.
Bye.
Love y'all.
It sound right, boys.